Welcome back to another episode of Light Beer, Dark Money. I'm Sean Noble.
I am Chris Clements. And
Happy
welcome to Light Beer, Dark Money. We're here with you today from Dave Pratt's Star Worldwide Network Studios. Hi, Sean.
How are you, Chris?
So nice of you to join us today.
You know,
What sorts of things are you working on at your home?
That's exactly how we sounded when we started 4
You know,
years ago. 4
years ago.
You go back and you watch the first couple of episodes. I mean, literally, it's NPR.
It is NPR, and we'll get to NPR in a second.
Okay.
Because they are under fire, and it was glorious to see. But 4 years ago, we had this crazy idea.
Well, you had the crazy idea.
Well, it was.
I would put it all on you. But
well,
it was a great
It went
idea.
from Robert Vera, who's executive director of Canadian Ventures, came to me, hey, do you think you would ever want to start a podcast? And I said to him, I have some ideas. Would you ever want to do it with anybody? I said, yeah, I think I know a guy. And that's when we had lunch.
Yeah, you said,
And you said to me, it just so happens I bought all this podcast equipment. I have nothing to do with it.
Well, it had been, starting a podcast had been on my to-do list at the beginning towards the beginning of COVID.
Yeah.
And Alex, our intrepid videographer.
Yes, and co-producer.
Co-producer.
Jack of all trades.
He got all the equipment, and it sat at my house for months and months and months. And then you said, have you thought about doing a podcast? I said, in fact, I have. And you said, I've got a name.
Yeah.
Light Beer, Dark Money.
Beer, Dark Money. And I was hesitant to tell you that name because back then you were a little squirrely about whole Dark Money thing.
I was still in that, like, stop calling it Dark Money. You're not being fair. And then you mentioned it, and I thought about it, and I was like, you know what? It is what it is.
Yeah.
It's not going to change.
Yeah.
I'll embrace it.
Yeah. Because you were the prince of Dark Money.
When I first mentioned it to a few people, there were, like, definitely the sideways glances of, do you think this is a good idea? I'm like, what difference does it make? I'm always going to be tagged as the Dark Money guy.
Yeah.
And so just lean in.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's it's an ode to our past. We've said that before. But at the same time, we're still dabbling in
doing
these
it.
things.
Yeah.
I'm still dabbling in some light beer, and you're still fully dabbling in Dark Money. So, I mean, maybe it's not dabbling. Maybe it's just, but it's a career.
Yeah. I mean,
but so many people love the name. That's the funny thing.
It is because it's unique. It is.
Yeah.
And speaking of so many people, we have to just right off the bat thank our watchers, our listeners, our subscribers, our likers, because without you, this would not be possible.
No, this would not be possible. We have to also just thank all of our guests, which are too numerous to mention. But we have a lot of great friends and family and acquaintances who've agreed to come on this show and share with us their wisdom over the issues of faith, freedom, free enterprise. And we just could not have been more pleased.
Yeah, it's been.
Thank you so much for having the faith in us. That we would treat you fairly and give you a platform.
Well, and I was thinking about it. We have only had one person say no to an invite.
Who was that?
Well, I won't say. It was a media personality.
Okay.
Who is
actually we've had two,
but they couldn't because it was against the policy of the company that they work for.
Yeah. Actually, we've had two.
Have we?
Yeah. Center Cinema still will not come on.
Well, but she's never said no.
She's never said yes.
Well, right.
But she's been asked several times.
Well, I mean, do we know that she's actually been asked? I mean,
yeah.
Oh, okay.
I've had a couple interactions with her.
All right. Well,
but she's never said no. But she's just kind of like, maybe one of these days.
So
So that is one thing we need to work on for our year 5.
Year 5.
The life and times of Kirsten Cinema.
Okay.
But also, we have to thank Robert Vera again for giving us a space at GCU. That's where we were born. And then something funny happened that led us here to Star Worldwide Networks,
which was the best
and
thing
Rock
that
and
ever
Robin
happened.
and Dave Pratt. And that was the fact that the administration at GCU, I think, got a hold of one of our shows starring Matt Salmon, and then wanted control over our guests.
Yeah. It's like, well, that's not why
And
we're
like,
doing this.
No, yeah, we're not going to do that. So thank you. And then when we came here, something about being in the studio and the openness of the studio and the professionalism here, the tone of the show changed.
Well, it just got more engaging.
Yeah.
I mean, it might be in part because we just got a little bit more comfortable.
I think that's true, but also
the process.
I went back and listened to our first show, and we had this idea that we had to change the tone of discussion, and we were coming off of J6 and Trump and the drama of that, and Biden was just elected, and we thought maybe things would change, maybe things would be different, and guess what? It got worse.
It got worse.
It got demonstrably worse.
Yeah.
And people like us were being canceled and targeted all over the country for the conservative views. And then it got really worse. And so we are really thankful, especially to Star Worldwide Networks, for giving us this platform.
Right.
And we're, ladies and gentlemen, we're, you probably already know this, we're pretty unscripted, and we can say anything.
Well, we have never edited a show.
No, for content.
No, we just if we say
which
it's on, it's going to be on the show.
We even had a show a couple weeks ago where we had like some dead air.
Yeah, well,
because somebody's phone was going off, and we thought it was mine, but no, it wasn't.
It turned out to be mine. If you listened to that episode or saw that episode,
and that was a good episode.
I was the one. I was the guilty party. It was my it was the Nanit, which is the cam for the crib.
Yeah.
For Leo, which I had not turned off. So it's the sound machine in his room. So it's just like this. And Alex, I couldn't hear it. You couldn't hear it. Alex could hear it.
Because he's much younger than we are. Well, he hasn't been to 50 Rush concerts like me.
Right.
I can't hear a thing. I can't see a thing. It's the worst. It's just
you're not that old, Chris.
Just age creeping up.
Yeah. So,
but you want is really old? NPR.
Yes. Okay, let's get to the NPR. You obviously have something you want to talk about with NPR.
No, I listened to some of the examination of how NPR still believes in its heart of hearts that it's not a bias organization.
Is that right?
Yes.
They really
believe that. In fact, they have over 80 or 87 board members, like editorial board members, all Democrats. Not one Republican. And this was called out in the hearings yesterday in the House, chaired by Marjorie Taylor Greene. But there's some really great nuggets about NPR and their CEO and some things that she tweeted back in 2020 about white supremacy and all this garbage. And she's like, "Oh, I don't believe I said that," said Congressman. And she's speaking in NPR-ish at the hearing, like, "Oh, that could not have been me.
That would not have been me."
And NPR gets played in my house when certain people come to visit, like my mother-in-law and my father-in-law, because they're left of center. And Alexa, off, because it's just a joke. And I made a comment to my mother-in-law like 2 weeks ago. You realize NPR is going away. It's going to be not publicly funded anymore. And you would have thought I took away her Christmas candy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, if
and I don't know that for a fact, but I think that's where they're going to be going.
Well, if people want it, they can pay for it. I mean, they have subscriber drives.
Absolutely.
I've actually given to NPR or KJazz here locally.
KJazz.
Because I feel like they've done some good stuff. I really, over the years, have enjoyed, the Companion Prairie. Whatever.
Oh, Prairie Home Companion.
Prairie Home Companion.
Yeah.
The
with
car
Garrison
talk,
Keeler. Yeah.
Car talk with the two guys from Boston.
What about Sweaty Balls?
Well,
that's an SNL.
Right. But I mean, look, there's space in this world for all these things, but it doesn't have to come out of your pocket as a taxpayer without you wanting it to be. So I agree that NPR should not be funded by taxpayers. It should be funded by people who want them there.
Yeah.
And since they don't do advertising, they do sponsorships. They say they don't do advertising, but they definitely do sponsorships. So it's the same thing. I mean, it's no different than CBS.
Sponsored by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and your local
Yeah.
PBS. You have NPR
Well, that's
and
brought
PBS.
to you by,
Yeah.
but sponsored by Monsanto.
So, well, PBS was up there too, and they see themselves as essential, even though that they're just as biased.
Yeah.
You know, and people forget that these were created back, I mean, in the 60s,
Right.
50s, when there was no cable, you weren't paying for subscriptions to anything. It was all just open.
Right.
And those times have passed.
Yeah.
And there's no reason as conservatives, this is where the argument just falls on its place, that we as conservatives make up, 30% of the country as people self-identifying as conservatives should be paying for a platform like that where we don't even get a voice.
Right. Yeah, I don't disagree.
And that's, so we'll see what happens.
I also wanted to, we touched on the Signal fiasco the last episode.
Is it a fiasco?
Well, and that's the thing. That it's being spun as
more and more.
So
I'm like,
since we recorded the last episode, Jeffrey Goldberg has released.
Not Jonah Goldberg.
No, Jeffrey Goldberg has released the entirety of the transcript of the.
Yeah, the Wall Street Journal actually did a great
and
annotating of that.
The
I want to check it out.
I mean, you want to look. You want to. The crazy thing is the cover the front page of the New York Times today is a huge band. It has a whole chunk of the text exchange on the front page.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like nothing ever. I mean, it's just tabloidish.
Yeah.
And which obviously this is the closest thing that the media has to a scandal in this administration so far.
Yeah. The scandal of no scandal.
Right. Because, and what's interesting is I don't think the left can figure out who is supposed to go down. Is it, they want it to be Hegseth.
Yeah, that's not happening.
Because he's the one that they don't like the most. But
he executed the plan flawlessly.
Right, exactly the way it should have been.
Exactly how he outlined.
Right, and they're like, well, he put this on something that was not secured. Well, this was a chat that was created by Mike Waltz. So Hegseth has no reason to believe that this
Mike
isn't...
Waltz staffer.
Yeah. So
Not Mike.
Waltz, right.
Let's be
Alex
clear.
Wong.
Mike wasn't sitting there on his iPhone or whatever
Right.
phone he uses, his secure phone, putting together this chat. Somebody else was putting together the chat.
So I am of the opinion that this is where I see it. I think that Alex Wong, who was the staffer for Mike Waltz, was the one who put the group together and, for whatever reason, included Goldberg.
Mm-hmm.
Now, was it inadvertent? I don't know. Maybe not.
I don't think so.
Alex Wong, for those that you don't know, has been around D.C. for a long time. He was.
Do you know him?
I've met him once.
Okay, I don't know him.
And he was a deputy to Lanhee Chain, who was the policy director for the Mitt Romney campaign in 2012. Alex Wong worked on that campaign. He has done a number of things. He's married. I think it was after the 2012 campaign, he got married to a woman who was, and actually the person who married them, officiated their wedding.
Yeah.
Sandra Day O'Connor.
Okay.
Because she clerked for Sandra Day O'Connor at the Supreme Court.
Okay.
She also clerked for Sotomayor.
Oh.
She also clerked for Brett Kavanaugh when he was on the district court.
Wow.
I mean, so these are two people who are very entrenched in
DC
the DC ecosystem.
Yes. The swamp.
So they're not. Oh, and she also has been, in the U.S. Attorney's Office, and worked at. I think she was I can't remember whether he worked at Covington and Burlington or she did. Might have been her.
Where Kyle was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is on the list of Trump has gone after them because they were, he's gone after these law firms for different Russiagate and all those kinds of things.
Yeah, strip their security clearance.
Yeah. So
that sort of thing.
So if Alex Wong is the person who put Goldberg on the thing, he should be punished. They're, fired, suspended. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what the
That's
right.
up to Mike Waltz, obviously, or the
Or
president.
the president. Because he was appointed by the president to the deputy national security. So, but this isn't. I mean, this is either Alex Wong purposely putting him on for nefarious purposes, to undermine the administration.
To embarrass the administration.
If that's the case, he's fired.
Yeah.
If it is inadvertent, if it was just a
he thought he was putting somebody else on.
Yeah, happened. A lot of the right wing ecosphere is saying if Goldberg is in his phone, then he shouldn't be there anyway. Well, I don't agree with that. I mean, I think that someone who's worked in politics, on presidential campaigns, and all kinds of different things. I mean, we all have contacts of reporters,
of course,
in our phone.
We have people in our phone that we don't know is in our phone.
Probably.
I mean, I do. I've got tons of contacts in there that have been downloaded from different, LinkedIn or whatever.
That's a good point.
It's something you could see happening, but it's a massive mistake.
Well, but I have hardcore lefty journalists in my phone because primarily they're in my phone so that when they call me, I know who it is and whether I want to answer or not.
Of course.
Right? So if this is inadvertent, then deal with it. But I think we need to get to the bottom of why did Alex put this person in the chat? And I go back to what I said before. He should have backed out of this thing. He should have literally, the moment this thing was created, he should have said, hey, wait, guys, I don't think I belong here, and exited out of the group.
Okay, that's where I think the real conspiracy is, in terms of the real scandal.
The real scandal is that he did
the
not
real
exercise
scandal
any
is
journalistic ethics.
Number one, was he really an innocent bystander in the chat, or was he put there purposely? Number two, if he was innocent, why wouldn't you suddenly realize it's a real chat? He said he thought it was initially some kind of prank. Back out.
Right.
Be honorable and say, hey, this is Jeffrey Goldberg. I'm not supposed to be in here. My apologies. Because there are implications for him too.
Sure.
Like if he's in there purposely and he finds out top secret information, and they find out that he was put in there purposely, he could be brought up on charges.
Yeah.
Potentially.
No, that's a good point.
That's sort of where I'm going with it. So the scandal really is around Jeffrey Goldberg.
Well, and
because to a certain extent, that people are trying to make a big deal out of, the dissension of J.D. Vance early on in the chat, but there's a whole back and forth throughout the whole thing that just sort of discounts that.
I'll say that the full chat shows that there was a very good back and forth, and that
it's called sausage, right? This is how the sausage is made.
This was the process. Now, the other line of attack that they're doing at the administration is how dare these people use Signal, because that's not a secured network. Well, guess who one of the big people who have complained the most about that?
Senator Mark Warner.
Mark Warner.
Yeah.
Guess what Mark Warner used when he was communicating with the lobbyist of a Russian oligarch?
Yes.
Oh, it was Signal.
Imagine that.
Huh. Interesting.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
that's the funny part about guys like Mark Warner. It's a very smart senator. Is that sometimes you step right in it when you're trying to make yourself, the part of the story.
Yeah.
And that's what he's been trying to do over the last couple of days. And all of a sudden, Caroline Leavitt's like, oh, guess what, Miss Senator Warner? Look what we found.
Right. I mean,
sit down and shut up.
Look, I guess what I will say is that if this is the worst scandal that they can.
Well, Warner's trying to make it like worse than Afghanistan or something like that. I heard that this morning. I'm like, okay, 13 people died at Abbey Gate, and you're trying to make some equivalence? Are you insane?
There's literally no equivalent. I mean,
are you insane? This operation went off without a hitch.
Yeah.
Despite this, I mean, the only credit you can give Jeffrey Goldberg that we said in our last show is
that he didn't leak it before.
Thanks for not leaking it ahead of time.
Right.
You know,
because he had information that was a couple of hours faster than.
But that doesn't excuse the fact you were on there and should have excused yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
So you have no honor.
Yeah.
Not the most honorable guy. But he's had it in for the Trump administration since the first Trump administration.
From the very beginning.
Russia, and everything else. I think those criticisms are completely valid.
Yeah.
But don't confuse him with Jonah Goldberg, editor of the Dispatch.
Right.
AEI fellow.
Yes.
Because Jonah will get upset.
Well, I mean, yeah. There have been some confusion.
There's been some confusion. I heard Clay and Buck. I was listening to that show yesterday, and Clay Travis was calling him Jonah. It had to be corrected.
Yeah. Yes.
So, yeah, Jonah's actually a true blue conservative, not a pro-Trumper.
No, but definitely
that would have been an interesting guy to have on the chat.
Yeah.
That would have been really interesting.
Yeah.
He would have actually engaged.
Yeah, exactly.
People like, hey guys, how are you?
The crazy thing is that the attacks on Hegseth about this. That's the thing that I'm the most confused by. But I guess I'm not confused. It is because Hegseth is a much greater threat to the leftist mentality than Michael Waltz, because Hegseth is in a more important position as Secretary of Defense.
What I'm reading, what I'm hearing, I mean, Hegseth is very well trusted by the president, very well liked by the president. The fact that regardless of this drama, this operation was probably his first test, and it went off splendidly. They are gearing up for another operation very, very soon. It was reported this morning. I was listening to the PDB. We're moving all sorts of stealth bombers to a nice little island in the Pacific, and there's something big is going to be going down in the next several weeks. Yeah. So, this was a big test for him. He passed it.
Absolutely.
And because he passed it, that makes him a greater threat.
Right.
When he talks about, reorganizing the military for lethality is the term that he uses. Now people are starting to believe him.
Yeah.
And despite the rulings against having transgenders in the military or whatever else like that, he's going to do whatever he needs to do to marginalize those folks, put them where they can't do any damage, and he's going to move forward with whatever he needs to do.
Right.
This national security team is going to do what they need to do. They're all about winning, and they're all about, for lack of a better word, please excuse my French on this, getting shit done.
Yeah.
And they're going to get shit done. And they'll deal with the rulings, they'll deal with everything else as they come, but they're going to keep moving forward in a very fast pace.
Yeah. So one of the things that is...
So I think he's redeemed himself, which is why you have people in Congress saying, was he drunk on the text? And,
yeah.
Because they just can't stand the fact that actually he's being successful.
Right. The
left hates success.
They do. So one of the things that we talked a little bit about last episode that we said we were going to get into was how deep of a hole the Democrats are in.
Yes.
As you look into the future. Now, one of the things that I will caution people on the right is that we on the right, and particularly Republicans, don't do such a great job when there is, off-cycle elections, special elections, you name it. I'll give you an example. There was a special election for a state Senate seat in Pennsylvania for the state Senate. And it was a district that Trump won by 15 points. And the Republican lost that race by like 500-600 votes.
Yeah.
Absolutely unacceptable. But it goes to the point that the left has a much better permanent infrastructure when it comes to turnout on these low turnout elections.
Yeah, I agree with you. Absolutely. So you still have to do, my initial thought is you still have to do the work.
Yeah.
Going on Fox News or going on whatever podcasts and spouting off whatever you want to spout off about, hey, that's great. But in the election cycle, you still have to do the work.
Yeah.
You still have to do the ground game. You still have to do everything you need to do to get elected. Because make no mistake, the Democrats do that very, very well.
Exactly.
And regardless of their polling at 20% or 25% or 29%, depending what you're looking at, they have a permanent infrastructure in this country in terms of electoral politics. And local politics, they're extremely effective.
Yeah. So two things to watch as we go. So we've got this state Senate race in Pennsylvania. We have next Monday special
Tuesday.
election. Well, next Monday, a special election for the U.S. House in Florida.
Oh, in Florida. And then we have the...
And then on Tuesday is Wisconsin.
That's what I was thinking
Supreme
about.
Court. Those two coming up are races to watch.
Yes.
Which can also point to issues. Now, candidates matter. And apparently, we don't have the best candidates in some of these races, which is part of the problem.
Yep.
But from a global, more global standpoint, if you look at, and I was just looking at this, 2030 apportionment forecast, it shows, states like California losing 3 House seats, New York's going to lose 2, Pennsylvania loses 1, Connecticut loses 1, Michigan loses 1. I'm sorry, Wisconsin loses 1. Minnesota loses 1. Illinois loses 1. And then states like Idaho add 1. Utah add 1. Arizona's going to add 1 at least. Texas adds 4. Florida
Arizona
adds 4.
should have had an additional one this last cycle. We got screwed.
Yeah, we might end up with 2.
Maybe 2.
It depends. So a whole bunch of seats going from Democrat states to Republican states,
or purple states,
which changes the map pretty dramatically. And
but we talked about it on the last show, the endemic and shifts within 3 subgroups: African Americans, Hispanics, and youth, especially men, is dramatic. It's absolutely dramatic. And I go back to the point I made at the last show, which was when it comes to the youth vote, especially the male vote, so much of what the Democrats have doubled down on the 80-20 issues, is driving vast amounts of males to identify as conservatives. Yeah. There's new surveys coming out that the young men who are identifying as conservatives they're voting Republican. They're actually becoming more religious, going to church. They want to get married. They want to have kids. And it's a different shift. And I think a lot of that was driven by the Democrats' approach to COVID policy.
Yeah.
The lockdowns, the mask mandates, what young men saw with their friends having, myocarditis, and some of which died.
Right.
Because of vaccine injuries. It's all there. And to placate it and kind of shuffle it under the table or sweep it under the rug, so to speak, is the Democrats' problem.
Yeah.
They're doubling down on the trans stuff when it comes to men playing in women's sports and the whole host of issues.
Right.
And that's an issue. and they're not gonna back off on that.
Well, I mean,
the vote in the Senate was an easy vote. It was
really
that's a good
indicator. That you had every Democrat,
that was a gimme. That was a real gimme to say that we are standing up for women, we're standing up for girls, we're standing up for girls' sports, and they didn't do it.
Not one of them did it.
Not one. Neither one of our senators did. It's going to be an issue for them when they try to get reelected.
Well, and it goes to
we're fathers of daughters.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine if I had to deal with something.
There is a podcast that I enjoy called Blocked and Reported. Katie Herzog and oh my goodness, why am I spacing on his name? Wow, that's embarrassing.
What's wrong with you?
I don't know what's wrong with me.
See, after 4 years,
Jesse Singal.
Okay.
Singal. Anyway, he was an early, like a few years ago, he got basically blocked and, they tried to cancel him because he'd written a pretty, big article on the trans issue. And he's been in that space.
Of course.
For a while. But they both, so they have a great podcast where they go into the craziness of the internet and how obsessive it can be, and all the weirdness.
Yeah.
And one of the things that they talk about, they obviously talk about the trans issue quite a bit. And they're both liberal. They both voted for Biden. They're not conservative.
Yeah.
But they are rational people. I mean, it is the kind of
rational people who live in reality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Katie in particular, because she splits time between North Carolina and Washington.
Okay.
State.
So she's
Jesse, I think, lives. Is he a New Yorker? Maybe he's not. I don't remember where he lives. Anyway, but they are rational in their thinking, and one of the questions that was posed, and it got me thinking, and Alyssa, my wife, talked to me about this, because I made the comment that, well, let me back up. She said that that a lot of people find it strange that the biggest defenders of trans women, so men are
who think they're women,
liberal white women.
Yeah, why is that?
And it's, these trans women are invading the very space that these liberal white women have forever tried to protect as their own, and now they're the biggest defenders, and it's because it's a religion. And you think about the church lady mentality. When you have women, they are the rule followers. And so in the religion of trans women being women, you have to follow that edict and enforce that law that they are women. And it's just fascinating. It's just because it's
and
such
yet
a
you have
weird...
several liberal women, traditionally liberal women like J.K. Rowling, Martina Navratilova, saying no.
Yeah. Well,
no, this is and being
Chris,
canceled.
They're TERFs. They're TERFs.
Okay.
They're not real, true liberal progressives.
Okay.
No, I'm just kidding.
No, they live in reality.
Yeah, they understand what women have been fighting for,
of course,
for generations, and now guys are saying, "Hang on, you don't get that.
No,
you can't have that.
No,
I'm going to be in there with you."
And guess what? I'm going to come into your locker room. I'm going to change in front of you. I'm going to be fully endowed. And actually, as in the case of Will Thomas or Leah Thomas or whatever his name is, I'm going to get excited.
Oh, geez.
It's disgusting. It's gross.
Well,
and the NCAA has allowed it. They say they've changed their rules. They haven't.
No, I thought they did.
No, it's whatever's on your birth certificate, and those birth certificates can be changed in certain states. And so what's happening is that Riley Gaines and Leadership Institute and other groups are going back to the president saying, listen, your executive order is not being followed in the way that, in the spirit that you wrote in the intent. The Justice Department needs to go back and put some pressure on these folks to actually in the NCAA to make sure this is enforced. It's an absolute travesty.
But it goes to, and we all know this, and this goes to that faith element of our podcast, that when there is a pulling back from the belief in a supreme being, the belief in a creator, the belief in a higher power, then the machinations of the day become the religion. And so for progressives who are atheists, trans rights is now their religion.
Oh, yeah. Or climate change or whatever else. Yeah. Something else becomes the religion. No, you're absolutely correct. When you deny the essence of the creator, when you deny the essence of creation, and you are turning away from that, then whatever else becomes your religion.
Yeah. I mean, and when
atheism is not the devoid of a religion. They have religion.
No, it's religion.
They're just worshiping other things.
Yeah, and when I watched that documentary October 8, which I highly recommend, they have video of these college campus protests and this cult-like repeating of things. Someone on the megaphone would say, "We are going to take a step forward for progress." And then everyone says, "We are going to take a step forward for progress." And they all take a step forward. I mean, it's just that it was just so weird. It was
you're either the shepherd or the sheep.
Yeah. But it goes to the fact that that's their religion.
Yeah.
That's their religion.
Yeah. No, I think that I've heard other commentators say the same thing. And I think that's absolutely correct. I never had thought about it that way. But when it comes to all these leftists who are devoid of any belief in God, devoid of any belief in creation order, devoid of any belief in creation of itself, they find something else to worship.
Yeah,
and it's usually something highly I would characterize as demonic.
Well, it may be demonic, but at a minimum, it's idolatry.
Yeah, which. Yeah, you shall have no other gods before me. There you go. I mean, it's all there.
It's all there.
It's all there if you want to read it. Been there for millennia.
Yeah.
It's all there. Thou shalt not have any other gods before me.
I'm trying to think there was something else I was going to talk about.
But believers are guilty of it too.
Oh yeah.
We put things up on a pedestal that we put things before God. All the time. And every time we do that, guess what? We're miserable.
Yep.
We're miserable. Those who believe. It's, and then only when we steer back to following God, following Christ, do we find our way again.
Yeah.
It's so funny you bring that up because I was at a men's event the other night at Trinity Church here in Scottsdale. The old Mark Driscoll, very controversial guy, but he's been doing this sermon series on Joseph, and we're in the thralls of the last part of the series where Jacob, Israel, his father, is dying. They're in Egypt, and he says to Joseph, "You need to bring me back to the land of Israel, of my forefathers." And he repents of his sins to his son, and he blesses Joseph's sons. And the whole sermon is about how we have the power as men to bless our families in ways that we have no idea. Mm. But only if we're in alignment with God.
Well, and that's the thing.
And if we're not in alignment with God, we're a mess.
Yeah.
Present company included.
Right.
Let me tell you.
Because we get arrogant and we have to be humble.
We start believing in ourselves.
Yeah.
And when you believe in yourself,
we're great.
I'm so great. Yeah. So awesome. I can do anything. You usually get slapped down by something.
Yeah.
It always happens.
That's true.
And also the other part of that message is that there's a season for everything, and you're going to be tested throughout your life, and once you pass those tests, you can see a door will open, but the test doesn't stop. The door just opens to another test.
Yeah.
So good stuff.
One last thing. Just wanted to throw it out there because it's newsy right now, and that is Trump's announced 25% tariff on
automobiles
that are not fully manufactured in the United States or assembled in the United States.
Yeah, and there isn't one that is.
Yeah.
There is?
They're Rivian and Tesla.
Okay, 2. I mean, I should have clarified. There's not one of the big 3 that are. Ford is mostly in Mexico and different parts, and it's going to be kind of a mess. And there was a comment I read earlier today that every time Trump opens his mouth about tariffs, the market dives.
Yeah,
and when he backs off tariffs, the market goes up.
Yeah, so
we're going to have like this roller coaster until he figures out what he wants to do.
78% of Ford vehicles would meet the test. 64% of Honda. Interesting.
What about Toyota?
Toyota 48%.
Really? Yeah. I thought they had a bigger presence.
GM, 52%. So an American company only has 52% of its cars fully assembled here.
So much for that AT4 I was going to order.
Yeah, you might want to rethink that.
Hold off on it.
Yeah, Rivian and Tesla are both 100%. Ford is the next at 78. Then Honda 64. Stellantis.
They still around?
I didn't even know that. So who is Stellantis? Is that Jeep?
That's Jeep. That's Jeep. That's right.
Dodge.
That's right. I was thinking of somebody else.
All right. Stellantis,
that's
57%.
Dodge, Ram.
Subaru, 56%. Nissan, 53%. GM, 52%. Toyota, 48%. BMW, 48%. Mercedes, 43%. Hyundai and Kia, 33%.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Well, Hyundai just announced a big plant.
Yeah. Volkswagen, 21%. Mazda, 19%. Volvo. If you drive a Volvo and you want to get a new one, better do it right now. 13%.
Well, I think that's initially what I thought these tariffs were going to be targeted at, and we talked about reciprocal tariffs a lot, is trying to open markets where we don't have a presence as American car companies.
Yeah.
And I've said it before, like you cannot get a Fords aren't manufactured in Europe.
Right.
Used to be, there were subsidiaries of Ford in Europe like Jaguar and elsewhere, but you couldn't get a Ford. Couldn't get a Ford F-150.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can get a Suburban in Germany or in England.
Well, I don't know if you could drive a Suburban in England. The roads are so narrow.
Yeah, that's true. But even a smaller electric Cadillac Escalade or something.
Yeah.
So I think if you were to do some sort of reciprocality on tariffs, it would be targeted at Europe more than any place.
Yeah. Well,
because at least the Japanese have made I think a very concerted attempt to manufacture cars here.
Yeah.
They have large plants. Do they want to do more? That'd be great.
Well, the fact that Honda is so much higher, Honda's higher than GM, right? Is that what I said? They have more.
They're higher than Toyota.
Yeah, Toyota.
Which that's a surprise.
Yeah, Honda is number 4 after Ford. It's Rivian, Tesla both at 100, Ford at 78, Honda at 64, higher than Dodge, the Stellantis, Dodge Jeep.
That's amazing.
Chrysler, yeah, fascinating.
That's amazing.
All right.
Well, we'll see where it all falls out. I mean,
I'll just say, buy a Tesla.
We saw the first. We saw the first thralls of the Congress acting on the Trump tax cuts this last week.
Yeah.
With an agreement between the House and the Senate how they were going to proceed, and they're going to do a debt ceiling lift, part of the big tax bill, which is great. So again, if the Republicans get their act together, they're able to get that passed in the next month or two. Figure out the spending issues along with that.
Yeah.
Doge continues to go full speed ahead. The running montage over the last week is all the Democratic talking points about Elon Musk and his chainsaw.
Yeah.
Like every single major press outlet was complaining about the chainsaw. You're just going to take a chainsaw. I still maintain, give the guy a Jason mask. Mask him up when he goes into these. Or Michael Myers, man. No, Michael Myers was knives. Jason was chainsaws.
Yeah.
give him a Jason mask and have him walk into the Social Security Administration.
Jason was the chainsaw? That wasn't. It was Jason in Texas Chainsaw Massacre?
No, Jason was Friday the 13th, but he used a chainsaw.
Oh, he did?
Oh, I think so. Or, Leatherface. Put a Leatherface on him.
I don't know.
That's fine, too.
Look, I don't know any of those because I've never watched those things.
Really?
I am terrified.
One of my best friends growing up.
I don't like horror movies.
My best friends growing up, every Friday he'd come over. My parents would go out, and we would watch like Friday the 13th movies.
That's crazy.
They were the best. I would not watch them now because I'm in just a different headspace, but in different spiritual space. But we loved them.
Always frightened me.
But the Jason mask, the ski mask,
that's
the hockey mask or whatever.
Terrifying.
Terrifying. Yeah.
Only thing more terrifying is that scream mask.
That's pretty terrible. Leatherface with the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Yeah.
Not good.
Put a Leatherface on Elon Musk.
Okay.
Start calling him Leatherface as he walks through the Social Security Administration, Medicare, Medicaid, and then really get the press talking.
Yeah, that'd do it for sure.
Because they're not anti-Trump anymore; they're just anti-Elon.
Yeah,
Elon derangement syndrome.
That is one of the things that we've seen as a shift is that the boogeyman for the left to target now is Elon. Okay.
So, in terms of that, and your fair Tesla plant or dealerships are being blown up and shot up, and Marsha Blackburn introduced a resolution this week to designate these folks who are perpetrating that as domestic terrorists.
Well, they are.
Yeah, you think any Democrats will vote for that? No, just like they didn't for protecting women's sports.
Yeah.
These are, I bring it up as we're kind of winding down here, but easy votes, 80-20 votes.
Yeah.
Easy stuff where they can pivot to the middle and say, look, we are, we have our issues with Elon Musk, but domestic terrorism of this extent is unacceptable.
Right.
But they'll call parents showing up at school board meetings domestic terrorists.
Yeah, exactly.
Or people praying outside of abortion clinics. A domestic terrorist.
Yeah. Well, and the other issue,
and meanwhile, the left is the one blowing things up.
Well, and you go to these 80-20 issues, the amount of effort that's being put on trying to prevent the deportation of gang members who traffic kids is insane.
It's crazy.
That's the hill you're going to die on? Really?
Yeah.
See how that's going to work out for you politically.
Return the Tren de Agua, whatever their names are, from El Salvador.
It's insane.
I just heard this morning they just captured the big MS-13, ringleader or whatever in Virginia, south of D.C.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
But, do we need to hold him now? He's probably here illegally. Do we need to give him due process? Screw their due process. They came here illegally. They were let in by droves. Get them out.
They need to be deported. All right. Well, hey, thank you for all of our listeners and watchers and subscribers and likers because 4 years.
4 years. Sean, it's been great.
It's been fun.
It really has been a blast. Thank you to Robin and thank you to Dave Pratt for believing in us. The morning mayor. Red Radio.
Yeah, the people that you don't see, Robin and Billy and Alex.
Yeah.
They make it happen.
People. No, they're tremendous.
Joe,
we love you.
Thank
you so much.
Folks, they mean everything.
Thank you to all of our guests all these years. We're looking forward to many more. We've got a gubernatorial race coming up here in the state in the next 18 months. It's going to be hot and heavy. And everyone's gearing up. But most of all, just a reminder that we are a podcast about faith, freedom, and free enterprise, the founding principles of our great, awesome, amazing country.
That's right. And until next time.
Thanks,
God
everybody.
bless.